I spent 8 years saving for my dream car, a restored 1967 Mustang Fastback in Highland Green. $45,000 of hard work, overtime shifts, and delayed gratification. My younger brother Jason always got everything handed to him on a silver platter. The golden child who never faced consequences. When I refused to loan him my prized possession for a job interview, I never imagined my own parents would try to send me to prison to protect him. Before I tell you how my own parents tried to send me to prison to protect my brother, drop a comment letting me know where you are watching from and hit that subscribe button if you have ever had to stand up to your own family. Growing up in our middle-class neighborhood in Lansing, Michigan, the differences in how my parents treated Jason and me were impossible to ignore. From the moment he was born when I was 6, it was clear he held a special place in their hearts that I could never reach. Our childhood photos tell the story better than words. Every Christmas and birthday, Jason would get the latest gaming console, expensive sneakers, or whatever trendy item topped his wish list. Meanwhile, I received practical gifts like school supplies, clothes, or savings bonds. My mother always justified it with the same explanation. "Otis, you are so responsible with money. Jason is different. He needs more encouragement." This pattern extended to every aspect of our lives. When Jason played Little League Baseball, my parents never missed a game. They cheered from the bleachers, took him for ice cream afterward, whether his team won or lost, and proudly displayed his participation trophies on the mantle. During the same years, I participated in the state science fair 3 times, even winning second place in my junior year. My father attended, once checking his watch throughout the awards ceremony while my mother stayed home with Jason. By 16, I recognized that self-reliance was my only path forward. I found a job at a local auto shop, sweeping floors and organizing tools after school. The owner, Mr. Callahan, noticed my interest in cars and began teaching me basic maintenance. Those hours in the shop became my escape, a place where my effort directly correlated with the recognition I received. Cars became my passion, especially classic American muscle. I devoured magazines and books about restoration techniques, engine modifications, and the history of automotive design. While other teenagers saved for video games or concert tickets, I put every dollar toward my dream, owning a genuine piece of American automotive history. My goal seemed impossible at first, requiring $45,000 for a properly restored vehicle, but I was determined. 8 years of disciplined saving followed. I moved up from shop assistant to certified mechanic, worked overtime whenever available, and lived frugally in a modest apartment. Dating was sporadic during those years, with most women losing interest when they realized my priorities centered around an automobile I did not yet own. By 28, I had enough saved. The moment I drove home in my 1967 Mustang Fastback, the exact model and color made famous in classic films, was the proudest day of my life. The rumble of the engine, the gleam of the Highland Green paint, and knowing every penny came from my own labor made the wait worthwhile. Despite our difficult history, I maintained contact with my family. I had my own apartment about 20 minutes from my parents' house, joining them for dinner once or twice a month. These visits were generally tolerable, though my accomplishments were routinely overshadowed by whatever new development existed in Jason's life. My girlfriend Amanda, who entered my life shortly after I purchased the Mustang, often encouraged me to maintain these family connections despite the unfairness. "Family is complicated," she would say, "but they are the only ones you have." Amanda came from a close-knit family herself and could not fully comprehend the dynamics of mine, but her perspective helped me maintain perspective. Jason, now 26, had established his own problematic pattern. Throughout his adult years, he regularly asked to borrow valuable items from everyone in his orbit. The results were predictable. My designer sunglasses returned, scratched beyond recognition. My power tools disappeared from his apartment, never to be seen again. And a laptop I loaned him came back with mysterious sticky substances between the keys. This history informed my one absolute boundary: nobody drives my car. Not Amanda, not my closest friends, and certainly not Jason. This rule was non-negotiable and known to everyone in my life. The Mustang represented not just a vehicle but a symbol of what I could accomplish through dedication and perseverance. The day everything changed began like many other family gatherings. It was a warm Saturday in June, and my parents had invited Amanda and me for a barbecue. We arrived at 4 in the afternoon bringing a homemade potato salad. Amanda had prepared, and a six-pack of craft beer. The afternoon passed pleasantly enough as we sat on the back deck making small talk about neighborhood changes and the upcoming local festival. When Jason arrived an hour late, the energy shifted immediately. My parents perked up offering him food and drinks with renewed enthusiasm. He announced with typical dramatic flair that he had finally secured an interview with a prestigious marketing firm in Detroit scheduled for Monday morning. "That is amazing news, honey," my mother exclaimed, clasping her hands together. "This could be your big break." My father clapped him on the shoulder. "That starting salary you mentioned would set you up nicely. I always knew you had it in you." Jason basked in their approval before adding his predictable complication. "The only problem is transportation. My car is in the shop until Wednesday." His eyes drifted meaningfully toward me. "The interview is at 9 in the morning, and I would need to leave by 7 to beat traffic." Before I could respond, my father turned to me. "Otis Jason can borrow your Mustang, right? This interview is important for his future." The familiar pressure settled on my chest. This scenario had played out countless times throughout our lives, with my needs subordinate to Jason's wants. I took a slow sip of beer before responding carefully. "I am happy to drive Jason to his interview myself. I can take the morning off work." My mother frowned. "That is unnecessary. He is perfectly capable of driving himself." "I know he is capable," I replied evenly. "But no one drives my car, except me. That has always been my rule." The temperature at the table seemed to drop 20 degrees. My father's expression darkened while my mother made that familiar clicking sound with her tongue that always preceded her disappointment. "Seriously," Otis Jason said. "It is just a car. I am not going to wreck it." "It is not just a car to me," I maintained my composure. "And I am offering a reasonable solution. I will drive you myself." The conversation devolved from there. My father mentioned pointedly how often they had loaned me their vehicles when I was younger, conveniently forgetting I only borrowed their old station wagon 3 times during high school emergencies. My mother reminded me that family supports each other, her universal code for "give Jason what he wants." Amanda squeezed my knee under the table, a silent show of support. When the meal ended, we made our excuses and left earlier than planned. The drive home was quiet, both of us processing the interaction. "You handled that well," Amanda finally said as we pulled into my apartment complex. "You stood your ground without losing your temper." I wished I could feel good about it, but experience had taught me that boundary enforcement with my family rarely ended with a single confrontation. I woke Sunday morning to Amanda making coffee in my kitchen. Sunlight streamed through the blinds as the aroma filled my apartment. These quiet weekend mornings had become my favorite part of our relationship. Simple moments of domestic tranquility before the world intruded. "I was thinking we could drive to Lake Michigan today," she suggested, handing me a steaming mug. "The weather is perfect." The plan sounded ideal. I sipped my coffee and walked to the window, automatically checking on my Mustang and its dedicated parking space. My stomach dropped instantly. The space was empty. "My car is gone," I said, my voice hollow with disbelief. Amanda joined me at the window. "Could it have been towed?" I shook my head, already moving toward the bedroom to get dressed. "I have a reserved spot, and I know exactly who took it." My hands trembled slightly as I dialed Jason's number. The call went straight to voicemail. Trying to remain calm, I next called my parents' landline. My mother answered on the 4th ring, her voice artificially bright. "Oh, Otis. Good morning. Mom, my car is missing." "Is Jason there? Did he take my car?" A brief pause followed. "Jason mentioned you had worked things out last night. He stopped by to pick up the keys." "What, I never gave him keys." "We did not work anything out." My volume increased. Despite my efforts at control, he must have taken my spare key from the drawer when he used the bathroom. My mother's tone chilled. "Do not be ridiculous. Jason would never steal from you. He said you agreed after thinking about how important this opportunity is. The conversation continued in this vein for several maddening minutes. My mother refused to acknowledge the reality of the situation, repeatedly insisting there must have been a misunderstanding. She promised Jason would call me after his pre-interview preparation meeting. 2 hours passed with no word from Jason. Amanda suggested calling the police to report the vehicle stolen, but I hesitated, caught in the familiar trap of family loyalty. Before I could decide, my phone rang with an unfamiliar local number. "Is this Otis Franklin?" A formal male voice asked when I answered. "Yes, speaking. This is Officer Mendez, with the Lansing Police Department. I am calling about your vehicle, a 1967 Ford Mustang." My heart pounded in my chest. Yes, it was stolen this morning. I was just about to report it. "Sir, your vehicle was involved in a serious accident on Interstate 96 about 40 minutes ago. The driver has been transported to Sparrow Hospital." The world seemed to tilt around me. Is my brother? Okay. I cannot provide details on his condition, but he was conscious when paramedics arrived. There was another vehicle involved, and that driver has also been hospitalized. I need you to come to the hospital as soon as possible to answer some questions. Amanda drove me in her sedan, maintaining a steady stream of reassurances that did nothing to calm the storm of emotions raging inside me. Anger at Jason's betrayal, worry about his condition, fear about the other driver, and sick dread about my beloved car all competed for dominance. At the hospital, a nurse directed us to the emergency department waiting area where a uniformed officer stood checking his notepad. I approached him, identifying myself as the owner of the Mustang. "Mr. Franklin." Officer Mendez nodded grimly. "Your brother is in treatment room 3. He has a broken wrist, facial lacerations, and possible concussion. But his injuries are not life-threatening. Before you see him, there are some things you should know about the accident." The officer guided me to a quieter corner of the waiting room. "According to witnesses, your vehicle was traveling well above the speed limit and weaving between lanes. It sideswiped another car, causing it to spin out and hit the median barrier. The driver, a 24-year-old woman, is being treated for more serious injuries, including a broken collarbone and internal bleeding. I felt physically ill. I am so sorry. Will she be okay? The doctors are optimistic, but she will have a long recovery." Officer Mendez consulted his notes. "Here is where things get complicated. When emergency services arrived, your brother claimed he was not driving. He said you were driving and fled the scene on foot after the crash. The accusation hit me like a physical blow. That is completely false. I was at my apartment with my girlfriend all morning. Jason stole my car without permission. I was actually about to report it stolen when you called." The officer's expression remained neutral. He is quite insistent about his version of events. He also registered a blood alcohol level of 0.14, well above the legal limit. He was drinking before an important job interview. The situation became increasingly surreal. "There was no interview, Mr. Franklin. We found receipts in the vehicle from several bars in Detroit where he spent last night." Before I could process this new information, my parents burst into the waiting area, their faces tight with worry. My mother spotted me and rushed over. "Where is Jason? Is he all right?" she demanded, not bothering with greetings. "Room 3, I answered mechanically. "He has a broken wrist and some cuts, but he will be fine." My mother immediately headed for the treatment rooms, while my father lingered, eyeing Officer Mendez warily. "What is happening here?" he asked, his tone attempting authority. "Your son Jason stole my car and crashed it while drunk," I replied flatly. "Then he told the police I was driving and fled the scene." My father's expression shifted subtly. "Let us talk privately," he suggested, gesturing toward a deserted corridor. Once we were alone, he dropped all pretense. "Listen to me carefully, Otis. Jason already has a DUI on his record from 3 years ago. Another one with an injury accident could mean serious jail time." "That is not my problem," I replied, anger finally breaking through my shock. "He stole my car. He hurt someone. And now he is trying to blame me. My father stepped closer, lowering his voice. It is just a car. Insurance will cover it. But this could ruin Jason's entire future. What about my future? I could go to prison for leaving the scene of an accident I was not even present for. You have a clean record. Worst case, you get probation. He placed a hand on my shoulder that felt like a lead weight. Your mother and I will help you with legal fees. We can find you another car, maybe even another Mustang eventually. I stared at him, finally seeing, with perfect clarity, the true nature of our family dynamic. You are asking me to confess to a crime I did not commit. To say I was driving drunk and left an injured woman at the accident scene. I am asking you to help your brother, he countered. Family protects family. I shook his hand off my shoulder. I will not do it. My mother emerged from the treatment room, tears streaming down her face. When she saw us, she hurried over. Jason told me everything. How could you, Otis? Your own brother. It took a moment to comprehend that in Jason's version, presumably shared with medical staff and police, I had not only fled the accident, but had let him drive drunk in the first place. Mom, Jason is lying. He stole my car this morning. I was home with Amanda. My mother's expression hardened in a way I had never seen before. Even now, you cannot take responsibility. Jason would never steal. He told us you offered him the car, but were too drunk to drive yourself. The absurdity of her blind faith might have been comical in another context. Call Amanda. She will confirm I was home all morning. Jason took my spare key when he used the bathroom at dinner last night. My father intervened. Keep your voice down. We need to present a united front here. He turned to my mother. Jason made a mistake, Margaret. Otis was not there. Her eyes widened in betrayal. You cannot possibly believe that I spoke with the officer. There were witnesses. Jason was definitely driving. My father rarely contradicted my mother regarding Jason, so his acknowledgement of reality surprised me. As the implications sank in my mother's expression transformed from disbelief to calculation, she lowered her voice to an urgent whisper. Then, Otis needs to say he gave Jason permission to take the car. If Jason stole it, that is another charge on top of everything else. The family conference in that sterile hospital corridor continued for 20 excruciating minutes. My parents strategized in front of me as if I were a chess piece rather than their son, debating which version of the story would result in minimal consequences for Jason. The injured woman in surgery was barely an afterthought in their calculations. When Officer Mendez approached to take my statement, my mother grabbed my arm with surprising strength. Remember what I said, she hissed. Family first. I gently removed her hand and turned to the officer. I would like to make my statement now. The complete truth. The resulting explosion from my parents created such a scene that hospital security was called to the waiting room. As they were escorted outside to cool down, I provided my full statement to Officer Mendez, including Jason's theft of the vehicle and my whereabouts that morning. Amanda corroborated everything when the officer called her. When I finally entered Jason's treatment room, his injured face registered shock at seeing me quickly replaced by a calculating expression. I now recognized all too well. You need to tell the truth, I said simply. You stole my car. You were drinking. You hurt someone. And you tried to blame me. Mom and Dad said you were going to help me, he replied, his voice small. Not this time, I answered, and walked out of his hospital room for what I believed would be the last time. The following week unfolded like a nightmare. My phone rang constantly with calls from my parents, alternating between tearful pleas and vicious accusations. My father left voicemails threatening to cut me from their will if I did not recant my statement. My mother texted biblical passages about forgiveness and family loyalty. I learned my parents had hired Martin Coleman, the most expensive defense attorney in the county, for Jason. Meanwhile, I received a letter informing me that my insurance was investigating the accident and might not cover the damages since the driver had taken the vehicle without permission. The police investigation continued, with Detective Rivera replacing Officer Mendez as the lead on the case. Despite my consistent account and Amanda's corroboration, I remained under suspicion due to Jason's unwavering insistence that I had given him the car and was originally driving. Without independent witnesses placing you at your apartment during the time of the accident, it becomes a matter of conflicting testimonies. Detective Rivera explained during an interview 3 days after the crash. My Aunt Caroline, my mother's sister, called to tell me how disappointed she was in my abandonment of Jason in his time of need. My Uncle Robert suggested I was jealous of Jason and had been waiting for an opportunity to destroy him. It became clear my parents were rallying the extended family against me, sharing a heavily edited version of events. The isolation might have been unbearable without Amanda. She never wavered in her support, accompanying me to police interviews and helping me research affordable attorneys when it became clear I might need legal representation of my own. "We need to be proactive," she insisted one evening, as we sat researching at her dining table. "Your building has security cameras in the parking lot, right? Those would show Jason taking your car." It was such an obvious solution that I was embarrassed not to have thought of it sooner. The next morning, we visited the apartment complex office to request the footage. The property manager, Mr. Wilkins, seemed uncomfortable with my request. "I will need to check with the owner about releasing that footage," he hedged. "There are privacy concerns." "This is a police investigation," I pressed. "I can have Detective Rivera contact you directly." Mr. Wilkins promised to get back to me, but my instincts told me something was wrong. That afternoon, I ran into Luis, one of the weekend security guards I had befriended over mutual appreciation for classic cars. "Hey, man." "Weird thing," Luis said, glancing around to ensure we were alone. "Your father was here yesterday talking to Wilkins. They went into his office for about 30 minutes. My stomach clenched. "Did you hear what they discussed?" Luis shook his head. "No. But after your dad left, Wilkins called me in and asked weird questions about the surveillance system, like who has access to the archives and if footage gets backed up anywhere." I thanked Luis and immediately called Detective Rivera to report my concerns about potential tampering with evidence. She arrived within the hour with a court order for the footage, only to discover that the relevant time frame had been accidentally deleted during system maintenance. "This is highly suspicious," Detective Rivera acknowledged, "but without the footage itself, we cannot prove deliberate tampering." Just when things seemed darkest, an unexpected break came from Amanda's persistence. She had been visiting local businesses near my apartment, asking if their external cameras might have captured the street where Jason would have walked to reach my parking space. The convenience store on the corner had a security camera positioned toward their parking area that included a partial view of the street. The owner, Mr. Patel, was sympathetic to our situation and allowed Detective Rivera to review his footage. The grainy video clearly showed Jason walking toward my apartment complex at 7:23 a.m., then driving away in my distinctive green Mustang at 7:36 a.m. This evidence directly contradicted his claim that I had been with him that morning. Meanwhile, I had been wrestling with another aspect of the situation. The other driver injured in the accident had a name, Sarah Livingston, a graduate student at Michigan State University. Her injuries were serious enough to require surgery and an extended hospital stay. Despite Amanda's concerns that visiting might somehow be used against me in the investigation, I felt compelled to see her. I brought flowers and a handwritten note expressing my sincere regret for what happened. Though I made no specific admissions that could be construed as legal liability. Sarah was initially suspicious of my visit, but as I explained the full situation, her attitude softened. "I remember seeing the driver clearly before I blacked out," she told me. "It definitely was not you." Her statement to the police, confirming this fact, became another crucial piece of evidence undermining Jason's fabricated version of events. The case took an even more dramatic turn when Detective Rivera informed me she had received an anonymous tip about my father attempting to bribe the apartment complex manager to delete the security footage. She arranged for a sting operation where Mr. Adebaw, Wilkins, now cooperating to avoid his own criminal charges, wore a wire during a meeting with my father. The recording captured my father explicitly offering an additional $5,000 to ensure the footage remained missing and to testify if necessary that the system had been malfunctioning for days before the incident. He was arrested for attempting to tamper with evidence and obstruction of justice. With his father in custody and mounting evidence against him, Jason finally broke. During a subsequent interview with Detective Rivera, he admitted the full truth: he had stolen my car keys during the family dinner. Never had a job interview, but instead had been on a weekend drinking binge in Detroit and had deliberately lied about my involvement to avoid another DUI charge. The family implosion was spectacular and public. My mother, forced to post bail for my father, still somehow blamed me for the situation. "If you had just helped your brother, none of this would have happened," she said when I encountered her outside the courthouse after Jason's arraignment. "If you had held Jason accountable even once in his life, none of this would have happened." I countered, feeling a strange calm, rather than the anger that had driven me for weeks. The case proceeded to its inevitable conclusion. Jason pled guilty to driving under the influence, causing serious injury, auto theft, filing a false police report, and attempted insurance fraud. My father pled guilty to reduced charges of attempted obstruction of justice. The judge, clearly disgusted by the family dynamics revealed in the case, delivered a scathing commentary during the sentencing hearing. "Mr. Franklin," she addressed Jason, "your actions demonstrate not only criminal behavior, but a profound moral failure. You endangered lives, attempted to frame your own brother, and have shown minimal remorse except when facing consequences. The court sentences you to 30 months in state prison." Turning to my father, she continued, "And you, Mr. Franklin, Sr., as a parent, had the responsibility to instill values of honesty and accountability. Instead, you actively participated in a conspiracy to obstruct justice. The court sentences you to 6 months in county jail, followed by 2 years of probation." As they were led away, my mother sobbed in the gallery, refusing to meet my eyes. The family we had been dysfunctional as it was had shattered beyond recognition. 6 months after the sentencing, I sat on a bench in Riverfront Park, watching the Grand River flow past. The seasons had changed: summer heat giving way to autumn crispness, then the first bite of winter cold. Nature's cycles continued regardless of human drama, a reminder that even the most painful periods eventually pass. Jason was serving his sentence at a minimum security facility, while my father had been released after 4 months for good behavior. My mother had filed for legal separation, unable to forgive him for what she viewed as inadequately protecting their precious younger son. The family home was on the market, another chapter closing. My Mustang had been declared a total loss. The insurance company eventually paid out after the criminal case confirmed I was not at fault, but the settlement amount fell well short of the car's true value, both financial and emotional. I had not yet decided whether to begin the long process of saving for another classic or to accept that some dreams once realized and lost need not be recaptured. Sarah Livingston had recovered physically, though she still attended physical therapy for lingering shoulder issues. We had developed an unexpected friendship through the ordeal, meeting occasionally for coffee to discuss her graduate studies in environmental science. Her resilience in the face of an unnecessary trauma humbled me. My relationship with Amanda had deepened through the crisis. She had seen the worst of my family dynamics and stood firmly beside me anyway. We were discussing moving in together when her lease ended in the spring, a step toward building something positive from the wreckage of the past year. Perhaps most surprisingly, I had found purpose in an unexpected place. Working with my attorney during the case, I had encountered a nonprofit organization that taught automotive skills to young people from disadvantaged backgrounds. I now volunteered there twice weekly, finding satisfaction in mentoring teenagers who, like my younger self, found solace and direction in working with their hands. 3 months into my volunteer work, I received a letter from Jason. I recognized his handwriting on the envelope and let it sit unopened on my counter for 2 days before finding the courage to read it. The letter contained no excuses, no attempts to minimize his actions. For perhaps the first time in his life, Jason took full responsibility for the harm he had caused, not just to me, but to Sarah, to our parents, and ultimately to himself. He wrote of participating in substance abuse counseling and beginning to understand how our parents' favoritism had damaged both of us in different ways. "I do not expect forgiveness," he concluded, "but I needed you to know that I see clearly now what I have done and who I have been. Whatever happens when I get out, I will not be that person anymore." I did not respond immediately. Forgiveness, I had learned, cannot be forced or rushed. It arrives in its own time, if at all, and must be genuine to have meaning. But I filed the letter carefully away, leaving open the possibility of response when I felt ready. The hardest lesson I had learned through this ordeal was the painful truth that family in the biological sense is not automatically deserving of unlimited loyalty. The people who should have protected and supported me had been willing to sacrifice my freedom to shield my brother from the consequences of his actions. Yet I had discovered a different kind of family through this experience. Amanda, whose love remained steadfast. My new friends at the automotive program who valued my knowledge and mentorship. Even Sarah, whose forgiveness taught me about grace. These relationships, chosen rather than inherited, had sustained me when blood ties failed. As I sat watching the river, I reflected on how life resembles that flowing water. We cannot control its course entirely, but we can choose how we navigate its currents. Sometimes, the path requires leaving behind familiar shores for unknown territories. The journey may be frightening, but it carries us toward who we are meant to become. I do not know if reconciliation with my family will ever be possible. Perhaps years from now, with changed dynamics and genuine accountability, we might build something new from the ashes of what was lost. Or perhaps our paths have permanently diverged, and I must fully embrace the family I have chosen rather than the one I was born into. What I know with certainty is that standing for truth, even when it costs us dearly, is never the wrong choice. There is a freedom in honoring our own integrity that no external approval can match. The road ahead remains uncertain, but I face it with clear eyes and an unburdened conscience. What would you have done in my situation? Would you have stood your ground even at the cost of family relationships? Or would you have found another way? Leave your thoughts in the comments. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button. Your support helps me continue sharing these life lessons. Thank you for listening, and remember that sometimes the family we choose matters more than the family we are born into.